there's going to be a sharing of who are the vendors, an evaluation of them, and there'll be a risk management analysis done to say if we stay with this vendor or move to this vendor, how does this work with the program? But there's going to be a period of time where a roadmap will be developed, a timeline will be created, teams will be created to review all aspects of the entire merger and acquisition, not just records management, but again, you're going to take responsibility for the area that you oversee, and make sure that there is a process for records management as well. To me, the integration process is more discovering the unknowns, because we can all speak to the things we know, but we also know that there's things going on in the background that maybe we're not sure about. And the integration process will hopefully bring those to light as well. Susan, how does that kind of work within your realm? Uh-oh, we got the laugh.
Sorry. We just recently brought on a new team, and as lawyers, we are still really paper heavy, and trying to move towards the digital age, right? So we just brought in a new team, which is fairly digital. The type of law they practice is fairly digital, and it was interesting combining their stuff. And something we have to think about all the time, especially as lawyers, is that not everybody can see everything, right? So we have to build these ethical walls inside of places. We have about, I think, 8 or 10 different practice groups. And not that we can conflict with any of our clients, but there are certainly places where we don't want some lawyers to go, they can't overlap each other. So that integration process of bringing them on board was more involved, because we had to think about where these ethical walls were going to go, what they were allowed to access, what other people were allowed to access, and trying to get everybody on the same page and working well together is always a fun challenge.
Yeah, I would say, if folks, like I said, I think either you've experienced it, you may currently be going through it, or it's going to happen at some point for organizations big and small. And so I would say start finding out, in the event, is there an integration plan? And in that integration plan, where does records management fit? Is there a checklist of the people that you need to touch base with? These are the functions we have. Here is the lead or the point of contact for that organization, for that function, and make sure that you are at the table, make sure you have a voice. Because, to Susan's point, there is a lot that probably can't be shared and won't be shared. But for whenever that flows down, where it's the opportunity to have the conversation, it's the opportunity to be part of the team, that you understand what the process is, and you know where the guardrails are, and therefore you can be effective in communicating and collaborating with the team.
Yeah, I was interested when I switched positions, and I've been here in this position about 7 years now, but I was interested in how much more politics were involved, how much more I had to get along with, try to manage everybody. I had a plan. I wanted them to follow my plan, but I have to work on getting everybody on board in different ways. Yeah, and those guardrails are there to help us or hurt us, depending on how we're going to approach it. So the integration process is always interesting.
Yeah, and I guess one other thing that we can touch on is, and this happened to me at Commerce, You'll look to see, do you have any current projects going on? Projects where purchases may be made or major decisions might be made. If a merger and acquisition is announced and you're at the beginning of those projects, then those projects will probably be stopped. Depending on how far the way through. We actually were reviewing our email and the retention of our email. We're looking to put in a solution to manage our email. And we came up with a decision, and senior management had to take a moment to decide what they were going to do, whether approve it or not. And a week later, the TD Bank acquisition was announced, and that project immediately got eliminated. And so again, depending on what you have going, once an acquisition or a merger is announced, some projects may be put on hold, and some projects may be totally eliminated. It happens.
I think also, as part of the integration process, again, try to be, it's difficult to be objective, even agnostic if you need to be, but be open to the possibility that when you start looking at your function, the systems you have in place, the processes that you have in place, the vendors that you have supporting you, and putting that alongside what the other organization is doing, be open that they may have a better deal, that they may have a process that may be more mature than yours. And so I do think we need to try to get the best of the best in whatever that new organization looks like. And so be objective in how you assess. Ray, when you talked about reporting into purchasing, procurement isn't a bad place to be because they ultimately makes the buying decisions more and more that, but the thing is making sure that they have the right requirements, you know, that they aren't making the decision based on whatever the vendor promotes, but making sure that they have the right requirements so they could make a good decision for the new organization as to what's needed, you know, and how that fits and how that can support now this new expanded organization.
And let's talk about that new organization, Susan, where
Okay.
we've gone through the integration process.
And we're all
Woo-hoo!
really happy, apparently.
Woohoo!
It's been a fun,
Yeah.
exciting time, and we're all really happy. So we've gotten through it. We're on the other side of it, but how do we make the most of what we now have? And sometimes you'll run up against things, right? And mergers and acquisitions, that sometimes happens because companies are trying to cut costs. So they might cut personnel, or as Ray was talking about, if you have a new piece of software that was on the horizon that may now be not paid purchased. Those are all things, all issues that we have to work within. Usually we're not as happy as these people are. But we're trying to be helpful to the team still, as Kathleen was talking about. We're trying to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So we're talking about making sure that there are policies and procedures in place, right? Good records management, like we know. Joe Leonard was talking earlier today about documenting things, okay? Where are our policies and procedures, and do we follow them? We have a whole bunch of new people. Now we need to train them. This is how it happens. However it shakes out, whose ever organization and plan comes out on top. Now we've got to train people to make sure that they're doing things the way we want them done, that they're following our practice and procedures. So training becomes a big, huge issue. We've got our fun-filled retention schedule, right, that we all live and die by, hopefully. And you know, is our retention schedule what the other people, the other corporations' retention schedule was? And we need to make sure that everybody is on the same page with training, with retention schedules, with vendors even. Where's their hard copy? I mentioned this before. Where are their paper files? Where are their digital files? How do we organize disposition of those files at the end of a life cycle? All of these factors are things we have to consider as we're moving forward. Hopefully that's the plan, right? We're moving forward into this new generation, into this new age of this new organization that that will be functional and make money, as companies are trying to do, and have the best of everything that can be available, the best employees, and the best resources available. We haven't talked about audits and compliance. I know I'm in a lovely position in a law firm where we are far less regulated than anybody else is. So I don't have to deal with that much here. We have some internal audits and things we run here, but regulatorily in other fields, in pharma, in fintech, you've got to think about what how the new company is going to handle audits and incoming requests from the government or other organizations that are following along. All of those have to be delineated to new positions. Somebody's in charge, right? Who in this new organization is going to handle that kind of thing? It's always hard with change. Many people don't like it. Even if you just change, think of it this way, even if you just change one small IT program, everybody whines about it, right? Everybody has an issue with a new communication program, or you're switching from WebEx to Zoom to Teams. There's always going to be whiners, right? That is going to be the case when we're moving on to this new organization in this new atmosphere. But as records management and information governance professionals, we're going to try to tamp that down and make sure that we have the processes in place that can make this transition as seamless as possible.
Yeah, and I think, Susan, as you mentioned, records retention schedule, which is near and dear to all of our hearts. Also, depending on whether you're being acquired or the acquirer, it's quite possible that this is a new niche business, and therefore it is not covered in whatever the record retention schedule is. So it will probably need to be revamped. And so that is one of the things that I think we need to acknowledge and make sure gets done, because depending on what that new company looks like, if it has expanded its product line, if it has expanded, whatever technologies that it may have in its customer base, that all of that may put you in a different place from a compliance and regulatory standpoint. And so the record retention schedule will need to be refreshed at that point. I think the other thing is about this, we are talking about this and it seems like a smooth flow. It isn't. It is not going to happen overnight. It may not happen in months, and it may take years. One of the things that I think maybe that needs to be acknowledged is businesses and organizations have a particular culture. And the cultures potentially can clash. If everything in one organization is about ROI and everything's got to be justified, and there is little regard or less regard for supposedly their biggest or greatest asset as the employees that work for them, and other companies where everybody's happy to be there, they've got good resources, they've got great benefits, and understand that in this new organization, things may not fall out quite as cleanly as we'd like. And so, to the point, be ready, because the thing is, you may not want to be there. So this business about, oh my God, do I have a job? That is that instance of the uncertainty that presents. But depending on what that looks like, you may decide you'd be better off somewhere else. So, it's not always about things happening to us. We need to make sure that we're in the driving seat of our lives and our careers. So again, I do think culture matters. And the new culture of the company, if that's not kind of the place that you want to be, the place that you think you can do your best work, like Ray said, it's time to start looking and see what else is out there.
Yeah, when I worked at Commerce Bank, we had our own culture, wow the customer, going above and beyond the call of duty whenever you can. And I always used to say we changed tires at 55 miles an hour. We never even slowed down. And not everybody can work in a culture like that. And definitely culture can make or break a strategy. If your culture doesn't believe in what you're trying to do, that culture can really blow it apart. But there's one thing I do want to go back that Susan made mention about audits, and I'm a fan of audits. Audits, a lot of people that I've worked with are afraid of them. They see the audit department coming in, whether it's for their annual audit or whatever it may be, and they get nervous because, well, those people are sitting in our office space and they're grading us and they're telling us whether we're doing things right or wrong. And I kind of look at it from a different perspective. The audit department for me gives me the barometer of things that I'm doing well, hopefully, and hopefully not things I'm not doing well, but at least it's documenting things that I need to improve. And when it comes to a merger or an acquisition, there will be a fair amount of paperwork for the whole organization, not just records management, but yes, including records management, where you're going to have documentation on what they did, what you do, what were their last audits like, what were your last audits. And once the new organization starts, I want a new audit right away. I want a baseline to start with, so I know what the audit department thinks we did correctly, what needs improvement, what can continue on. It's just a way of documenting things you're doing well and charting areas of improvement. Again, I look at audit as a friend. I try to educate them. I mean, in my organization, and I'm sure I say my organization, I don't work there anymore. But when I worked at TD, or I worked at TD, and I worked at Commerce, I'll get it right. We had an audit the same time every year. An auditor walked in. They were using the work papers of the previous auditor who either wasn't doing the audit this year or didn't work there anymore. So you really were dealing with an individual who may not understand the area as well as they should that they're auditing. And the first thing I would do is I would bring them in a couple of weeks in advance. Maybe we'd go out to lunch. We would have meetings in my office and we would talk about records management and the department and what we do and how we do it and where we do it. And I wanted to educate them to understand records management as best they could going into the audit and not just try to interpret somebody else's work notes. And I find that, you're going to need to keep a fair amount of paperwork that was happening prior to the merger and acquisition. You'll continue to do that after. But if you can, try to incorporate audit into your function of evaluation, because it's going to let you know, what you're doing well, and gaps that need to be filled or updated, and where there's room for improvement.
And Ray, I absolutely agree with you, because having an audit, and first of all, you're right, is making them familiar with the process. So, they can have the right interpretation of things. But also, if there are things that needs improvement and there are gaps, audit can work in your favor to make those things happen. Particularly if you feel that you haven't had the resources, financial or otherwise, haven't had the support, and or an audit profiling some gap, and depending on how that's written up, can work to your favor in that it will be paid attention to, and therefore you can improve things the way you like and know that it needs to be done.
Mhm. I agree.
I have a question from the audience. This one, this is Kathy Lovemore. They wonder if someone can address the integration or non-integration of off-site facilities to the new organization.
Of vendors like Kathleen, you mean?
Yeah, let's say, yeah, let's say like an Iron Mountain. Integration of off-site facilities, or in negatively the non-integration in the new organization. How do you go about dealing with that, dealing with off-site facility integration?
In my case, it was relatively easy. I am based here in Delaware, right? So we brought on an organization downstate, another law firm downstate, and I use a vendor up here, of course, and they used a vendor down there. And because I've been to that vendor, I'm clear about what they do and how they handle things, I'm happy to have two offsite organizations, two offsite vendors, because I can control them both. But if you're in a much larger organization, I'm sure that's an issue. Kathleen?
Yeah, well, I think that question will be determined by procurement and what the contractual obligations are, what the best rates are. Much of it is outside of controls, and we bring in the what else of what we need to consider. So again, when I mentioned before about having requirements of why you need certain things, I would also advocate that if there are two or multiple off-site providers in this space as a result of the acquisition, by all means, audit all of them.
Mhm.
Make sure you understand what they have, make sure you understand what their security processes are, make sure you understand what the SLA is that's in place. And so again, there may be benefit to consolidation or not. But those things, I would say, audit those companies, understand what they do and how they do it, so that in the go forward, again, getting the best of what you need and the best support that you can have. I
Yes.
hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and I guess what I could say to that is what Kathleen just said. And I, the one thing with the organization I was with was what I found out is our volume throughout all the programs I managed in the procurement function. Volume gives you the opportunity to probably get better price, but that doesn't mean that that's exactly where you need to go. We always operated with, and we'll go back to the word value. We're looking for the best value, and value is the best combination of price, quality, risk, and service. It's all four of those functions together. So as an example, if you negotiate a price for delivery, this is probably one of the easiest examples. If you were going to negotiate a price for delivery of paper records, what's the normal turnaround time? Let's just say it's 24 hours. You're going to get one price for that. But if you want rush service, which is 4 hours, you're going to pay a different price. So if all somebody did was look at what do we get charged for delivery and lumped in rushes with regulars, you're doing it a disservice. And as Kathleen said, you really need to look at all the contracts. There needs to be a total audit of everybody to see. And we may have acquired some smaller banks along the way, and maybe they needed some special services that we as a bigger organization didn't need, but they do. And we'll take that into account. So yeah, when it comes to vendors, there's definitely got to be a review of the overall contract and definitely, do what's best for the situation. All right, we are down to 10 minutes, so we've got 2 more sections to go. Kathleen, why don't we talk about let the games begin?
The games have begun.
Yes, they have.
So I think Susan and Ray, you've touched on it as well. Much of this is, or the success of this from a records management standpoint and where we all sit becomes political. The alliances that you can make, how you can collaborate with the team, whichever side of the equation that you're on. But I come back to do things with integrity, be the professional, because even though you either choose not to stay or are not invited to stay, that you haven't killed your reputation in terms of getting references or having somebody vouch for you and the like. So I think, yes, it becomes a political arena at that point. We all, believe it or not, whether we want to acknowledge it, we're all political animals because we are looking out for our self-interest, and our self-interest needs to align to the organization and the support of our team. So play nice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm always interested in the different personalities and how you need to approach people to get them on your side, right? I might have one partner who's grouchy and doesn't care at all what I do, and he just wants me to handle it. And I might have other partners who are micromanagers and are heavily involved or trying to be heavily involved in what we do. So yeah, you need to play nice with anyone who can influence how your program runs. And along the way, you might find some people in high places that are helpful to your program.
Yeah, I still talk to my previous bosses from TD Bank in Canada to this day, and will be going on 15 years. They're nice people. I would have preferred to stay and run the function. It was not in the cards, so therefore I wasn't going to. And as Kathleen says, it wouldn't do me any good to cop a attitude. It would be a disservice and also a distraction. And then, potentially there's things being said about me and could influence maybe a future job I could have. The best thing I can do is just the decisions are made. And that's what let the games begin means to me. The integration has happened. They've made all the decisions they're going to make. The program, the organization, and your records program are going to be done a certain way. Let's move forward. And if you're a part of that, be the best employee you can be, and make it work. Or in my case, when my team got let go, thanked me for my years of service, and out the door I went. And you just look for another job. There's no reason to hang on to it. There's no reason to continue to think bad about it. If you're with the organization, make the best of it. And if you're not, make the best of it. So, hopefully you're there, and hopefully you want to be there. And trust me, there are some jobs that I got through the mergers where I'm going, well, I'm glad I'm out of here. But, it is what it is. And I guess 5 minutes left.
So Ray,
Final-
just one point I also wanted to make.
Sure, go ahead.
It is quite possible in the new organization, your reporting line may change.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, Ray was working and reporting up to procurement and ultimately up to accounting. It could now be compliance. It could now be legal, or, so again, all of that will play into the visibility of the program, and as well as the support that you ultimately get. So all of those things you need to take into the consideration as to the resources that are brought to bear, depending on what the changes are. Not all change is bad change, but none of us like change. So it's just difficult to work through.
Right. All right, final perspective. Let's go around the table. Susan?
Just in general, mergers are fun and exciting. I do think it gives us an opportunity. You were talking about the audit process before. It gives us an opportunity to improve, right? To make sure we're going down the right path. And it is difficult, and employee wise, it's difficult, and IT wise, it's difficult. But to have the opportunity, I think if you sit back, many of you have probably seen my blog post. I'm finally going to go get my certification. And I've been sitting here for 7 years not getting my certification because I'm comfortable, right? And if we're comfortable inside of the processes we have, if we're comfortable inside of the systems we have, inside of the committees that we're a part of, it begins to get stale, right? And so auditing, having this merger or an acquisition helps us refresh everything, helps us make sure we're going down the right path and we're on track.
Kathleen?
Yes, I think Susan said it all when she said, be part of the solution.
Mhm.
That's the side of the equation you want to be on. I would recommend, as I said, you manage your career. You're always ready. You need to be ready wherever this lands, your different reporting structure, different style of management, whatever the case may be, we need to be adaptable to that. In fact, recently within the Employees Club, they were revisiting, had a book club, and they were revisiting Who Moved My Cheese. I would recommend that as a refresher. Many of us, a couple of decades ago might have read that as a business resource, but I think it still stands today that we need, when change happens, we need to get out of the mode of victimization or sense of vulnerability, because it immobilizes us. And so we need to reframe what that opportunity looks like and where we play in it.
Nice.
And I'll finish up kind of echoing the same sentiments. Life has changed, period. Whether it's your job, your personal life, records management, whatever it may be. My first job out of high school was at a bank. And long story short, I had a boss who couldn't accept change, to the point where we were in a rectangular room and they moved us across the hall to a square room, and he fought it every step of the way. Even things like that, the shape of a room, not only just an acquisition or a merger. But whoever said it, your attitude will determine your altitude, and how high you can go in a merger and an acquisition, whether it be you stay within the organization and you grow, or you leave the organization and you grow, is going to be based on your mindset. So you got 3 people on this panel that all experience mergers and acquisitions, and will all tell you the same thing. It takes us by surprise. It can be scary. You have the oh my goodness moments when it first starts. But once you get past that initial phase and can decide that you're going to be a part of the process and let the process go where it will, I think it'll be less stress. And I think that it'll be a much better experience for you. Yeah, if you're on the wrong side of a merger or an acquisition, it's not fun. We all can tell you that. But there's a path through it, and you can make it, and your attitude is all a part of it. So Hutch, I think we pretty much come to the top of the hour. So there's your mergers and acquisitions and records management.
Thank you very much. And coming up very shortly at 3:15, we'll have Christopher Ramos, and his topic is Homeland Security and cyber attacks. And that's coming up at 3:15. So right now, we'll pause for that, and I'd like to thank our panel very much. It was a really great presentation. So we'll see you back here at 3:15. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Hello,
And
sir.
we're coming, hello. And we're coming up on our last presentation, but not our last event of the day. Our last event will be at 4:15. Those are our final remarks. And those will be by the chapter president. That's Ray Davis. So we're coming up on 3:15, so we'll start pretty soon. And I think Susan,
Yes, sir.
you'll do the introductions, right?
I will, if that's cool with you.
Oh, it's more than cool. Thank you.
Do we have Chris on the line? Oh, apparently.
Oh, we've got him and his presentation very quickly.
Nice.
That's great.
I like it. All right. Is it time? Yeah.
Oh, it's time.
All right. We can go ahead and get started. Hello, Chris. Chris Ramos is the first person I thought of when we started talking about putting together this spring seminar. Chris has kind of a cool job. He is the cybersecurity coordinator for our region for CISA, which you probably heard of. It's part of Homeland Security. It is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and they work with both public and private corporations, companies, organizations to strengthen their cybersecurity, reliability, and resilience. And I suspect that he will scare the pants off of us first, and then let us know what CISA has available to help us stay safe and or recover from a cybersecurity attack. Chris, it's good to have you with us. Thanks.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and really appreciate you inviting me over for today. So again, my name. You know what? Why would we start introducing, go around robin and introduce ourselves? I'm just kidding. So my name is Chris Ramos, and yes, I am the cybersecurity state coordinator for Delaware. But I know this is Keystone, so Keystone also covers part of Philadelphia, and more on that later. But yes, as Susan mentioned, I am from CISA. Our agency name is very long. Just remember it's CISA, and we are part of U.S. Department of Homeland Security. We are a federal agency. And like she mentioned, in support of CISA's mission of reducing risk to U.S. critical infrastructure, we work with public and private sector critical infrastructure owners and operators to strengthen their cybersecurity and reliability and resilience. Yes, we work with private. We don't discriminate. While our name is focused on critical infrastructure, we don't discriminate. Anybody who needs help when it comes to cybersecurity or physical security, if we have the bandwidth, we're more than happy to help. So in my role, thank you for that introduction again, Susan, about my role. So I am the cybersecurity point of contact to CISA, and I conduct numerous cyber preparedness, risk mitigation, and incident response coordination activities across the region. These activities include conducting various outreach efforts, cybersecurity assessments, cybersecurity workshops, and something like this. We're just fostering public and private partnerships and assisting cybersecurity in incident response coordination efforts. So Susan, would you like me to just go straight ahead with my presentation for today?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Sounds good. All right, let's go ahead and do that now. All right, here's our agenda. So I'm going to provide a quick overview of CISA for those who are not familiar with our agency, and also on ransomware. Next, I'm going to provide a cyber briefing that will cover the state of ransomware and also cover vulnerability snapshot, which is an analysis of our observation of internet accessible information technology assets on one specific sector. And I'm going to mention to you what that sector is later. And the start of the show is really CISA's entity notification. More on that later. Finally, we're going to call you to engage with CISA. And for legal reasons, I'm going to make this disclaimer. CISA does not endorse any commercial entity, product, company, or service, including any entities, products, or services referenced or linked within this presentation. Any reference to a specific commercial entities, products, processes, or services by service mark, trademark, manufacturer, or otherwise does not constitute or imply endorsement, recommendation, or favoring by CISA. Now, that's out of the way. All right, CISA, the vision of the agency is simple. It's very simple. It's for a secure and resilient infrastructure for the American people. That means things like access to clean wastewater treatment, safe and secure transportation systems, and reliable and resilient healthcare infrastructure. And I always tell this to folks who I speak to for the first time when they're not familiar with critical infrastructure is that remember, from the point you wake up in the morning and all the way to the point you reach your office, your work, or if you work from home from your to your desk work, you probably touched about 4 to 5 critical infrastructure sectors. So we can discuss on that later as well. But our mission as the America's Cyber Defense Agency and the National Coordinator for Critical Infrastructure Resiliency and Security is to lead the national effort to understand, manage, and reduce risk to cyber and physical infrastructure. There's a lot of focus on understanding because we rely on reliable information in order to understand something so that we can manage and reduce it. And similarly, I'll also show you the challenges we have with ransomware in a bit. So, CISA is a federal agency. We do have 10 regional offices located across the country, and we do support all 56 states and territories. Through our CISA regions, we can offer more hands-on technical assistance and subject matter expertise to state, local, tribal, and territorial stakeholders around the country. Now, a CISA regional staff like myself can help organizations conduct free assessments to identify security vulnerabilities that may help with converging security operations directly, supporting owners and operators with tangible risk mitigation solutions. So in Region 3, that's Delaware, along with Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and DC. So if you've never worked or haven't worked with a regional staff yet, I encourage you to reach out. So if you're in Delaware, that would be me. I'm the only CISA guy stationed on the cyber side that's stationed in Delaware. For those who are in the Philadelphia area, my colleague's name is Steve Blom. I just came from another engagement with him. He was covering Pennsylvania, and that's where I was, and rushed back. But if you're outside of these 2 regions and you're not familiar with your representatives, please reach out to me. My contact information will be on the last slide. So what is ransomware? So ransomware is a type of malicious software or malware that encrypts data on a computer, making it unusable. So a malicious cyber criminal holds the data hostage until the ransom is paid. No different from the real world, right? If ransom is not paid, the victim's data remains unavailable. Cyber criminals may also pressure victims to pay the ransom by threatening to destroy the data or release it to the public or sell it to the highest bidder. So although cyber criminals use a variety of techniques to infect victims with ransomware, the most common means of infection are, as you expected, email phishing campaigns. That's why you have a lot of email phishing exercises, and you get go through training again if you ever fail that, right? And there's remote desktop services vulnerabilities, and most common as well are software vulnerabilities. Okay, in case you missed it, here are some notable, definitely just some of the most notable some ransomware related news in the news articles around. You probably heard about the 2 casinos in Las Vegas last year, and the recent attacks on healthcare. That's very fresh. It just happened early this year, and again just last month. Or that ransomware payments actually reached $1 billion last year. That's how much it cost, how much money the gangs made last year. So for more information on ransomware, please visit stopransomware.gov. It is a scary looking website. It's just how it is, just to get, the effect on this is serious matter or something like that. All right, here we go. So let's talk about the ransomware outlook. Here's the challenge. There is no single source to capture accurate and reliable information on the state of ransomware. So for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to use different sources and see what each one is saying. The first source will be CISA, our CISA central ticket data. We are recording it, and there's a team within our agency that does tracking for ransomware incidents. And then the other one would be the dark web data. There's a third-party vendor who scrapes information from leak sites and forums. The data is enriched using the data that vendors performing similar dark web data collection. And the third one is actually just open source data. This is data sourced from Recorded Future, if you've heard about them, which collates open source ransomware reporting and government reports from the FBI, the information sharing and analysis centers, and CISA. So this data I'm showing you right now, this covers data from January 2023 all the way to January 2024. Again, here's a quick recap of our data sources. There are 3 columns. The first column is what gets reported to CISA. The second column is what ransomware gangs say they've done. And on all the way to the right is what you read in the news and other public sources. But according to this data, in 2023, if you look closely on the second row, based on voluntary victim reporting to CISA and messages from the dark web, ransomware incidents actually increased. But by how much? The 2 sources actually, the numbers vary widely. And the open source data says ransomware's numbers are going the other direction. So all these 3 sources report also different target sectors, right? So what could be the reason for the discrepancies? Well, it's possible that victims are less willing to report. And on the other hand, threat actors advertise their exploits. They're proud of it. But remember, they've also been known to overstate or make false claims. So that's how it is. So here's the fourth source we're going to use. So another way of capturing data is via surveys, and that's what Sophos has been doing since 2020. Now, again, CISA was not part of the study in any way or the survey. I'm just sharing this recently released publicly available information for awareness. As a reminder, CISA does not endorse any commercial entity, product, or company or service. So this reference does not constitute or imply endorsement or recommendation or favoring by CISA. But it is interesting to know. Okay, so these findings is from 5,000 leaders responsible for cybersecurity across 14 countries. So the rate of attack, according to the report, remained the same. 2022, 2023, and 2022 about the same. And according to this report, or to this survey, the top 3 industries, or we call sectors, they call industries, is basically the central or federal government, healthcare, and energy. Again, no surprise, right? But the conclusion is ransomware continues to be a serious threat to organizations. It can severely impact business processes and leave organizations without data they need to operate and deliver mission-critical services. Just take, for example, the recent attack on the healthcare system. Cybersecurity doesn't have anything to do directly with patient care, but you will notice that some patients are diverted to different hospitals or care providers due to cyber events. So they are interconnected. That's just how the world is today. We're moving on to vulnerability snapshot. I hope I'm not going too fast. We do have quite good amount of information to cover today. So this is CISA's observation of internet accessible technology assets from financial services sector. And I'm going to tell you why we chose that. Well, entities who are enrolled with our CISA vulnerability scanning service. It's a free service. and web application scanning service, also a free service. Why don't I just say it? Everything we do is free and voluntary. So, and everything that scans data during as recent as March. So this analysis, and I'm going to get into that shortly, this analysis will give you an idea of challenges other financial services organizations are facing in the nation, and hopefully will inspire you to be curious of your own cybersecurity posture. So I understand we have a number of sectors present today. One of them is financial. We have government sector. We have, I believe, we have communications, healthcare, and others. But we only have time for one, and I chose the financial services sector because they're very interesting. So on a high level, for those who are not familiar with financial service sector, this includes depository institutions, providers of investment products, insurance companies, and other credit and financing organizations. So these are the sectors. They provide deposit funds and make payments to other parties. They provide credit and liquidity to customers. It's all about investment funds and transferring financial risks, right? So that's what the financial services sector is. So here's the executive summary on our findings. According to our analysis, that financial services sector, or we'll just call it FSS, continues to be a top target for both nation-state sponsored cyber threat actors and financially motivated non-state threat groups. So CISA recommends or highly recommends organizations consider taking a risk-informed approach to vulnerability management and review CISA's cybersecurity performance goals. And I'll give you more info on the CPGs later. So what are the threats? Recent advances in AI, so everybody, if you won't get through a day without hearing the word AI, or any presentation includes AI, including the first presenter, I believe, for today, right? So the AI have facilitated low-level automation of initial access or persistence. So this is just how to get into the target. They use AI, so that includes social engineering, that includes your phishing, and malware generation for the actors. And here are our findings. It shows that IT assets are particularly vulnerable to known exploited vulnerabilities, or KEVs. So I'll give you more information on KEVs later. Now, threat actors also leverage what we call the vulnerabilities, including remote desktops. And lastly, being financial sector, they do use file transfers, and that seems to be very prevalent, one of the most prevalent vulnerable service. So it's not all doom and gloom. So this is probably the only good slide I'm going to show you. I'm just kidding. So good news, folks are signing up to CISA's vulnerability scanning service. So that helps people to identify vulnerabilities. That's the good news. So when you go back to your organization and you're wondering, you can ask them, are we signed up to CISA's cybersecurity vulnerability scanning? If not, let them reach out to me. If they don't even know what's going on, just reach out to me and I'll point them to the right direction. So there are 3 slides all dealing with vulnerabilities. So what I'm trying to use in the next few slides will tell you what are the challenges the sector is facing. So here's the first one. A good number of them, are still using one or more end of support operating systems or software. These exposures of known threats is very imperative to maintain awareness of upcoming end of support timelines, ensuring that operating systems and software versions are up to date. It's no different with your phone. That's the closest thing you normally do, that you have to update your phones, right? It's no different when it comes to business. You need to make sure you use supported technology. Here's the next one. So these are high numbers, except since we're talking about vulnerability, those are bad because they're very high. High means bad in this case, unfortunately. So the vulnerability scanning service will not only identify vulnerabilities, but the service also will categorize them by severity. So we have the 3 severities up there. So the KEVs, the critical, and the highs. From what we can tell, these three high severity vulnerabilities seem to be, they remain active well outside our recommended timeframes for remediation. So typically it's within 15 days, and that's our recommendation for federal executive branch government agencies. So we kind of tell that that's our recommendation, and on the financial side, and for everybody who actually monitors our KEVs, probably should do the same. And last slide on vulnerabilities, basically it's just a lot of information here. The other findings are just, we find a lot of weak encryption. You know, it's 2024, we still see a lot of weak email system security configurations. We see a lot of misconfigurations and broken access controls. So again, like I mentioned, those last three slides showcased common weaknesses in financial services sector entities. The thing is, they are not limited to just that sector. You will find commonalities across the 16 critical infrastructure sectors. It's just something, you know, how technology works these days. Therefore, you know, these entities should continue to maintain awareness of their internet accessible vulnerabilities and take mitigating actions to reduce risk of compromise. All right, so this is the highlight of my presentation. In most ransomware related presentations, and you probably have sat in a couple of them in the last few years, the materials focus on tips and best practices to avoid an attack, right? And then there might be other presentations, or within the same presentation, they're going to show you how to respond when your data has been encrypted or stolen. So that's prevention and reaction, right? So now today, it's different. Today, we'll talk about CISA programs and initiatives that deal with situations that happen between these two stages. Okay, all right, here we go. First, let's get over the legal stuff. CISA has authorities, including in Title 22 of the Homeland Security Act of 2022 as amended, to perform timely preventative vulnerability and cyber activity notifications to organizations and clients. Now, we'll dive into that later. There's a lot of words here. Basically, our primary goal is to expeditiously give organizations information that could help prevent a cyber attack or reduce harm when intrusion is in progress. In 2023, we did about 2,200 entity notifications nationwide. All right, so again, what kind of notifications are we talking about? Well, we conduct three types of notifications. So we categorize these notifications as either before or after threat actors exploited the vulnerabilities. Remember, in the challenges for the financial services sector or our overview of ransomware, the commonality is the vulnerabilities that are being exploited, right? So basically, when it's already exploited, it means the vulnerabilities has been escalated into a cyber activity. In all of them, the goal of the notification is to provide information that could help prevent attack or perhaps reduce the intrusion. Okay, so let's do this. Two of our notifications deal with ransomware. Again, ransomware is a big problem. So this material basically is all about, you know, getting ahead of the ransomware epidemic. So we distinguish the two notifications based on whether the vulnerability has already been exploited. We know there is a short time. So just because you have a vulnerability doesn't mean they're already there. So it's just although it's a matter of time, right? So we know there is a short time after ransomware actor gains access to a system and before they can actually encrypt and exfiltrate data from you. So more of that later. So CISA established the Ransomware Vulnerability Warning Pilot Program, so the RVWP, in January 2023. So it's, you know, about more than a year old. It was authorized by the Cyber Incident Reporting, or CIRCIA, Infrastructure Act, which is CIRCIA of 2022. CISA will identify organizations with vulnerabilities commonly associated with ransomware, with known ransomware actors, by using our services, our sources, our technologies, and also our authorities, including information we gather when we do cyber hygiene vulnerability scanning, which we encourage everybody to take advantage of, which is free. For the benefit of the community and for network defenders, and to help every organization better manage vulnerabilities and keep pace with threat activity. So CISA maintains the authoritative source of vulnerabilities that have been exploited in the wild. And that's what we call the known exploited vulnerability catalog. So of all the weaknesses in your system, these are the top ones. What normally you call as critical before, this is even higher than a critical. So CISA strongly recommends all organizations review and monitor our catalog, our CAB catalog, so that to help prioritize remediation, and then move on to critical and then move on to high, because it can be overwhelming. There are days when we release up to 17 vulnerabilities on a specific sector. For example, just today, if you are subscribed to our cybersecurity alerts and advisories, we just released 17 in one shot, 17 vulnerabilities related to industrial control systems. So that we're talking organizations on, whether they're doing electricity or doing their water. So anything to do with operational technology. That's one big notification we just sent today. So basically, once we identify the organization, we know the vulnerability, we know the organization, we're going to notify the owner of these vulnerable systems. Thus, enable timely mitigation before a damaging intrusion occur. All right, here are some stats on CISA's notification efforts in 2023. So we made more than 1,700 notifications. Again, it's no surprise that the top three groups are government, healthcare, and energy. And the fourth place is financial services sector. All right, so here's the thing. At times, our analysts identify or receive information about vulnerable systems, but we cannot determine who owns the systems. So we have this, so we have the IP information, but we don't know who to notify. And that's where administrative subpoenas come in. This is a legal process, by the way. So CISA has the authority to issue these subpoenas. This authority applies when CISA identifies a system, it's connected to the internet, and it has a very specific security vulnerability, and we have reason to believe that the security vulnerability relates to critical infrastructure, okay? And it affects a specific device or system, but we are unable to identify it. So commonly, if you have anything that's connected to the internet, the person or the organization who has the subscriber or customer information leads you back to the internet service provider or your ISP. So that's who we submit or issue administrative subpoenas to. Here are frequently asked questions about our vulnerability notification. How can you expect to get the notification? So CISA regional staff members like myself, we're going to call you. If it happens in Delaware, it will be me. We normally start with making a phone call, but in Delaware, so don't rule out in-person notification. Sometimes it's the better option. I would appear in person. This is what I look like. So when somebody walks into the door and this looks like this guy, it's me. So that's probably not always a good news unless I was invited like this one, then it's always a good news. Am I required to comply with CISA's recommended action? Because we tell you there's a problem and we tell you how to fix it. That's how easy it is. So the question is, are you required to follow it? No. Receiving a notification does not require you to comply. Remember, CISA is not a regulatory agency. So it will be a business decision to whether to act or not to act on our recommendations. But yes, no need. You don't have to take any action, but at least you know that there is a problem that you might get compromised. And the question is, okay, how did you find out that we were vulnerable, right? Well, like I mentioned, we leverage multiple open sources, and internal tools and to research and detect vulnerabilities within the US critical infrastructure. We encourage you obviously to subscribe to the vulnerability scanning service, because by doing that, you are getting regularly scanned and you get the reports directly without us having to call you. And it comes in as often as a week. Every week, it comes in every week. So what can you expect in the notification? I did answer that before. So it will contain key information about which system specifically that has a problem or vulnerability. So it will provide you the make and the model of the device, will give you the IP address, and how we detected the vulnerability, and most importantly, how to mitigate it.
So can I
And so
subscribe? Can I subscribe to the vulnerability scanning from the website, or how?
Yes. So all you have
Am
to
I
do.
jumping ahead? Sorry.
No, but it's fine. The subscription process can go two ways. If you want it easy, reach out to me and I'll just let them know to register you. Another way is we have a website where it says where it goes into detail, but all you have to do is email vulnerability@cisa.dhs.gov and tell them, I would like to subscribe to this thing that Chris says is a cyber hygiene service, vulnerability scanning service. Those keywords will get you out there. But if you copy me, I'll explain to them what's going on. Sounds good? Yes, but I'll try to paste that in the chat window as well if I have a good opportunity later on. Yes, and lastly, the last type of the notification is called the PRNI. So if the previous pilot was telling you have a vulnerability, like I said, doom and gloom, right? PRNI is even worse than that, because PRNI, not only do you have the vulnerability, right? The bad guys are already in. They manage to exploit the vulnerability and they're already inside your network. So through PRNI, we use tips from security researchers and industry on early stages of ransomware activities. So without this information sharing, there will not be any PRNI notifications. So like I mentioned, it does take some time for ransomware actors to, after gaining initial access, once they get into your system, it will take them a little bit of time to figure out what you have, where do you store stuff, and where to get them. So that time, after initial access and before they encrypt data and then steal your data, there is a short period of time. It can take between hours. It can take days, depending on how big and how much they know about your organization. So this window, from the point they get in and they get your stuff, CISA has time to warn organizations that ransomware actors have gained access into your networks. So this early warning can enable victims to evict the ransomware actors from their networks before they have a chance to encrypt and hold critical data and systems at ransom. So that's one good thing about it in a sense, right? So here are some stats on CISA PRNI efforts from 2023. So we made about 1,200 notifications last year. And the top three groups, again, no surprise, same gang. We have healthcare, education, and governments. So SLTT governments also includes education. So that's why it's a big group. On fifth place is the financial service sector. So it's still up there, right? So here are some questions specific to PRNI. How do I expect? So how do I expect it to receive a notification? So it will be folks like me again, somebody from either from our regional office, or we have a division called the cybersecurity division. They might be doing the call as well. So it depends on the situation. They may call you directly, or on the standard process, it will be through me, me being in Delaware. So again, for those folks in Philadelphia, it will be Steve Long who will be doing the call for you. And here's the tricky part, because CISA assumes, remember, they are already in your system. we believe, we can assume that they can see the network and they can see communications within your network, right? So we will ask you to establish what we call out-of-band communication. Out-of-band communication simply means we will not use your organization email to share information to avoid tipping off the threat actors. We'll just, don't let them know right away that you're after them. So we can do everything over the phone. We'll go over the details over the phone. We can even send it to you to your personal email account, so you can actually have the details and print it out if you need to. So it can be Gmail, Outlook, Proton. It can be Yahoo. Anything outside your organization it's going to be the out-of-band means. Again, these email services are just for reference only. Again, CISA does not endorse any service, commercial service or product. What can you expect? Same thing. When it comes to notification, we will provide you key information. However, each notification is different. Some notifications may include IP addresses, extracted log files, data dumps, what others may not. The information from CISA can serve as a starting point for a broader research and investigation, as it is always an evolving situation. It's like when your neighbor friend says, I'll be on vacation, can you look after my house? And suddenly you see strangers going into the house. You say, you report that to your friend, say somebody went to your house, there's a stranger in your house. You may not be able to tell exactly, answer questions like, where exactly are they in my house? I don't know. It's your house. Maybe I don't know what's valuable in your house, right? So we can tell you that something's there, but you're probably in better position to know what you have and where to find them in case they're actually after something valuable or critical to your organization. So what do we? What's the role of the critical infrastructure owners or the entities who we provide this information to? So discover CISA, reach out to us, learn who we are or learn who your representatives are. So it will, because they'll tell you why, like the challenges we have to overcome when we do notifications, and having a relationship, or at least knowing who we are and that we exist and that we do these notifications actually help both of us really. And I'll get to that shortly. Next, this is where, deploy detection and hardening measures. This is the typical stuff you normally listen to when it comes to ransomware. This is the prevention part. And, build long-term resilience into your system, to your supply chain. And lastly, remember, if there's a vulnerability, it's hard for us to find the person to report it to. So it would be good to have something on your website so that we know who to reach out. And by that, this is what I mean. So what challenges have we been? We've been doing this for over a year now. And even though we've done a number of them, we still have challenges because, again, not everybody is familiar with CISA. We are one of the youngest, if not the youngest agency in the federal government. We just celebrated our 5th year last year, right? So our first challenge is, who do we report this to? Who do we contact in the organization? If ABC company has a problem and we know it's their problem, who do we talk to at that company? The thing is, normally there is a cybersecurity officer. That's the person. That's normally is the person in charge. The thing is, you can even find their names and their pictures on the website, right? But the thing is, it's getting to speak with them directly. That's a challenge. So we don't mind going through hoops. By that I mean, it's calling service desk, executive assistants. They even have some chat bots there just to find that. The thing is, we have come across, at least I have come across at least one entity where they have policies and procedures in place not to answer any or accept any unsolicited calls for the cyber chief. So we cannot get to them. And the thing is, here's the good news. The reason they do that is because their cybersecurity awareness trainings, are very effective. They do the social engineering and exercises, and they know not to trust anybody, including us. That's how it is. But there are also times when we are asked to leave messages. So they would say something like, the IT team will call you back. You can leave a message, but they rarely do call us back. So we are holding information vital to your organization that isn't even being used. But there's also a way. There are times when the person stays on the phone long enough that we can go through how to verify our identity. So there's a slide for that. And finally, you may also there might be times where CISA lets you know of the vulnerability, and right after us or right before us, you'll have another federal agency like the FBI calling you and letting you know exactly the same thing. Good news is now, okay, you have two agencies, federal agencies telling you the same thing. Maybe there is really something going on, right? So here's one way this is for the technical folks that have something on your website to let us know who to report it to. So there is a standard where they will just say, okay, on this website, and this is exactly where to find it, this page, this link, it will name exactly like that. And if you go to your website, if you don't have something like that, it means you don't have it. So just go to your website right now and follow that link and says, do you have a security.txt file on your website? If it doesn't, the IT folks probably should put it there. And here's the thing. So we call you, we tell you we are from CISA and we have information to share. You have every right not to trust, but you have to verify. We will tell you, we'll provide you our name, our full names. My full name is Christopher Ramos. I go by Chris Ramos. And my phone number that I use to call for notification is always my work phone. The signature, the phone number on my signature, when I email you, Susan, that's my mobile number. That's my official number I call when I do report notifications. So you can see I'm calling from this number. And I'll give you another thing. I'll give you what we call the notification number, which is a unique number to your cases. Consider it like a case number. So these three information, my name, my phone number, and the reference number. And we encourage people, and the procedure is to call our headquarters. And the number of headquarters is 888-282-0870. You don't have to remember that. All you have to do is go to CISA.gov, and all the way to the bottom is the official number. Call that number and just tell them, hey, there's this guy from CISA. He says he has some information, and he's doing this entity notification, and he gave me this number. What happens in the background is they're going to look that up. They're going to look up the case, and they want to make sure that the person assigned to the case is the person who called you. So that's how we know it's not just any number. That number exists. That number is assigned to a person to report to you. So, and that person's number is in the system here, and they know I'll be calling from that number. So that trifecta confirms that, yes, this is a legitimate person calling you from our agency. So together with all of that, this is not a scam, right? So hopefully that helps. All right, so limitations. Oh, like I mentioned, every situation, every case, every incident is different. So there are times where we have information, we have a lot of information. There are times we don't have enough information. All we know is there is something going on, and we'll help you help you with the research. But but I guarantee you, whatever we provide you is probably everything we have. We do not withhold whatever is shareable to you. All right, we're going to give you, how much time do I have, Susan? I'm done. I'm good? Okay. So
sorry, I was muted. You got 15 or 20 minutes. You're good.
Okay, good. So I'm going to share you some success stories. I think after this slide, we're going to talk about the CISA services anyway. So I think I only have 2 slides left. So success stories. So here's one from, so we cannot tell you who they are, obviously, for privacy reasons. And part of our CISA's, the way we do business is we do it by partnership. We are a partnership organization. We're not regulatory. We do not name specific companies when there are victims of any incident. What we're concerned about is the lesson from that incident, so that we can educate our partners, right? So that's the idea. But these are success stories. There was one university, whose network was already compromised. Remember PRNI? That was the situation. With anti notification, with a PR notification, the impact was reduced because they managed to get ahead and restore their network quicker. Another case is a critical manufacturing sector. Again, a PRNI, somebody was already there, was already in the system, but because they were notified, they managed to isolate the activity, before the actors actually managed to compromise sensitive areas. So while there was active exploitation, but being able to complete a notification in a timely manner, our time to get to you, is very important. Post-incident, after everything happened, the company made much needed improvements to their network. So that is a big thumbs up for them. And lastly, we have a pharmaceutical company here, manufacturer, also PRNI. So during and after the incident, the company worked closely with CISA on information sharing. The incident in subchamber form, led to the development of their cybersecurity strategic plan. So if you don't have one, don't wait until something bad happens to develop it. Here we go. So here we go. So I think this is my last slide. So CISA has a number of voluntary and no-cost cybersecurity services. Again, no cost, and they're all voluntary. Our focus is on prevention and resilience. We won't go over each one, but allow me to highlight some that will help you get started. So we do, in my workings and engagements with entities, whether it's a small agency, a small municipality, or maybe it's a big manufacturing company, we try to organize and create a roadmap of cybersecurity. So how do you start from steps, from crawling all the way to running? So the first step of this is, like I mentioned, is the vulnerability scanning. It's a proactive and regular scan that identifies externally accessible assets and services for known vulnerabilities. You're going to look for weak configurations, any kind of misconfigurations, or any suboptimal security practices. And newly discovered vulnerabilities will automatically be included in the scan. Remember the CAV catalog? So as soon as it goes into the catalog, as soon as we notify the public, and then the scan, which happens regularly against your organization, it gets checked right away. So on the receiving end, so if you're not signed up, organizations need to keep track of that and then build their own scanning or update their scanning services. With the cybersecurity scanning we have, it's all built in. It keeps looking for that automatically. And there's another one, cybersecurity performance goals. When we were working on the FSS earlier, like 10, 20 slides ago, it did mention the cybersecurity performance goals, which are a subset of cybersecurity practices. It's aimed at meaningfully reducing the likelihood and impact of known threats. So it tries to help identify gaps and help you prioritize your investments in order to improve your cybersecurity posture. So think of it as, if you don't know where you stand, that's the first thing you're gonna do. Just get a baseline, in order to identify your gaps and where the weaknesses are. So depending on your organization and depending on how well you are set up, perhaps you are eligible for penetration testing. This is typically offered to organizations with, depending on your cybersecurity maturity. It's a technical assessment. It determines, your susceptibility to an actual attack, and we're going to use real-world tactics and techniques, procedures, just like the bad guys. All right. In other cases, we suggest people to organizations to go through the cyber resilience review. So the cyber resilience review, if the CPGs, the baseline assessment only takes about 2 hours or 2 hours or less to go through an interview-based assessment, the CRR is like thorough, full day assessment. So this is normally recommended once you do very well with the CPGs, because this evaluates your operational resilience and your practices. So it will also try to determine whether your capabilities that are most important to ensuring your continuity of services can sustain during operational stress and during crisis. And we also have tabletop exercises. So you're probably familiar with tabletop exercises. We have a lot of resources online. We have cybersecurity scenarios. We have physical security scenarios. We have physical convergence. They're all available for download, and you can customize them to meet your needs. Now, if requested, we can facilitate a tabletop exercise. We will work with you to say to develop the exercise situational manual that you have. Now, if all fails, if none of the resources we have online work for your needs, we can work with you to develop a tailored scenario or tailored scenario to meet your unique needs. Again, with that, so we have CPGs. And how do you request CPGs? You email me. It's just a matter of scheduling. We schedule you. We find time that works for you and works for me, and we'll go through that. For the CRR, same thing. It's all about scheduling. The waiting period is as soon as you're free and as soon as I'm free, we'll put that on the calendar and do the same thing. For the vulnerability scanning, there's an email address to send out. But if you just want to email me and let me know that you're interested, I'll facilitate the registration for the scanning as well. What else? So if you haven't subscribed to our alerts and advisories, I suggest you do. It's very easy. You just go to our website, cisa.gov, scroll all the way down, and you'll see the hit subscribe, and just follow the on-screen instructions on that one. All right. And again, there's more services on that page that we didn't go over. And I'm sure you have lots of questions and how our services might be able to help you. Please reach out to me. And this is my contact information. Again, my name is Chris Ramos. I am the Cybersecurity State Coordinator for Delaware. It doesn't matter what state you are today, what territory you are. Just reach out to me and I'll help find out who your local representative is and then connect you to him or her. And that's my phone number and email address. And I think that's all I have, Susan.
Oh,
All right, thank you, sir. Hutch, do you have questions?
yeah, let's see, I have a question. Do cyber insurance companies ever point to CISA as a resource? And do they take your working with a company into account? Let's say maybe it'll help reduce your their insurance rates or insurance fees. Has that ever? Do you know anything about that?
So in practicality, cyber insurance will have their own stipulations on how to lower your rate. That may include requiring you to have endpoint detection in place, that to have penetration testing, to have assessments. They may require you to do that. And if that is one of the stipulations to reduce your cyber insurance, if they don't state specifically where you should get that, you can talk with them and determine, CISA has CISA services, and they have penetration testing, they have assessments, they have vulnerability risk mitigation assessments. Can we go with them? Because they will let you know if it's okay. But I have worked with other organizations in Delaware where they did reach out, and as part of that say, oh, I'm doing this because of my cyber insurance. So I guess it worked out for them. From our point of view, we do it because we provide the service equally, whether or not it's going to help you reduce your rate or simply because it's going to help you on your cybersecurity posture. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
And it doesn't matter what type of organization it is or what size the company is, you'll work with them.
That's right. We'll work with you whether you're one-man team or a 20-man team like the one I just came from.
You have international counterparts, let's say in someone working in Canada who has a government service like this that you keep in contact with, or other countries that are friendly
Okay.
countries?
So perfect question. We do work with international partners. So we have the Five Eyes. We have Australia, Canada, the UK, and New Zealand. So we do have international partners. So if you may have of JCDC, so we do have partners. We have liaisons with other organizations nationally and also internationally. Yes, we do share information. In one of my slides, there is one there that says, let me see if I can go back to that. It's about the PRNI or this guy. So you'll notice that in PRNI, we have 294, right? 294 notifications were actually shared to 27 partner countries, right? So we work with their CERT partners on those countries in order to notify them. So hopefully that helps.
And I don't see any questions in our chat.
I put them all to sleep.
Yeah, no.
No, I don't think so. You scared them off.
Everybody's scared. Everybody's scared.
Oh, please don't be scared. That wasn't my intent, but hopefully it was helpful.
Oh, definitely informative.
All right. All right, that's it for me.
Right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. It's very helpful to know that people are out there working on these kind of things. You don't have people crawling the dark web yourself, right? You don't have tech people out there crawling around trying to see what's out there. Are there third parties that do that?
I cannot speak to that. All I can tell is you do need information in order to understand what you're dealing with. And that information can come from anywhere. It can come from our partners. It can come from other vendors. It can come from third parties who crawl the dark web and see if whether or not your account, your data is out there. To give you an example, one of our services, which I didn't go over, was I did mention penetration testing. So one of the things within penetration testing is scouring the internet, and that includes the internet in its full sense, to see whether or not any of your users from your organization, right, any from your organization whose email exists somewhere, whose account actually was compromised. And we're going to see whether or not that account is still active. So that's part of the assessment, because remember, when your account is compromised and once you're notified about it, there are chances are you're going to have to change your password. And one of the things we tell, especially under our Shields Up program or campaign, is Shields Up has to do with never reuse your passwords, because your password in one organization, in one service, whether it's banking, shopping, bill payment, credit cards, if you reuse your password, they'll be able to associate that, hey, this is the same person I found here, and I got the person's password for this bank. Maybe I should try that on that bank and see if that works. So something like that also happens. Also, information is important, and then we do that as part of the assessment to determine, you are susceptible. You do found in cases like that. So far, in my experience, folks have been quite lucky that even though their accounts were found elsewhere, they were not compromising the organization. These are the cases where folks maybe forgot about the acceptable use policies that's common in organizations where, hey, by the way, your company email should only be used for business. Don't register that for your personal stuff, because that's how people see that, oh, why is your email address, your corporate email address, in a shopping company? And then now they can associate it. Even worse is that they might be able to see that you might be reusing a password, which is even the worst case. So again, to two best practices there. Separate your personal from your work. That's one best practice. And number two, never reuse your password. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All
Any
right.
other questions?
Other questions?
Nope, no more questions. So I
Alright.
think it's maybe time for us to move on to our final event of the day, and that will be our remark from the president of the Keystone chapter, and that would be Ray Davis.
Who's that?
That's you,
Who's
sir.
that? Oh, well, I wanted to thank everybody for attending today. You know, it is the first annual spring semester of this newly formed Arma Keystone chapter. Over last summer, we made it a state chapter merging Pittsburgh and Liberty Bell. And we're very pleased to see that we have a great turnout for our inaugural spring seminar. I can tell you that these type of events don't happen just with one person. It was a group event. For our entire board, Susan Hadley, Eileen Reeder, Suzanne DeChico, Brianne All, Ruth Snyder, Christopher Michael, Joe McNamee, Rich Slaughter, and myself, and Hutch Johnson. I want to thank them very much for the effort they put through to get the program together. I'd especially like to thank Hutch Johnson because last night at probably what, 9:30, 10 o'clock, Hutch, I texted you and said, oh, by the way,
10:30.
10:30.
10:30.
I'm going to be in and out on this, so I'm not going to be able to introduce the speakers. Can you please MC the event? And surprisingly, at 10:31, he answered and said, sure, not a problem. So special thanks to Hutch for doing what he does, and that's jumping in and helping out however he can. And I'd like to thank all the speakers. Great speakers, great topics. And we'll have this on the website eventually, Hutch.
Oh, yes.
I know we recorded it today.
Sure did.
So hopefully in the near future, you can go back and revisit it and rewatch some of the sessions you saw earlier. Just want to watch them again. But I want to thank everybody again, our board, as well as all the attendees and all the speakers. You made a great event today. I think it was a fantastic event. The only thing I don't know how it's going to work out, and I will defer to our esteemed treasurer, co-presenter, Susan Hadley. How is everything going to work with our gift cards?
All right, so we have 4 gift cards that we're going to send out. And we were going to go behind the scenes and pull the Zoom logs and figure out who's been here the most. And we're looking for at least 75% attendance. And then I will contact you individually and see whether you want an Amazon card or a Visa card or whatever. And I can email that directly to you. That's for 3 people. And then 1 person, Hutch, what did we say? Oh, the most active who wasn't my big mouth. Will also get a gift card. Cool.
So other than that, again, I just want to thank everybody. It was a great day. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. And I will, as to echo Susan's previous comment, join the Arma Keystone PA chapter.
Yes,
we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you there. So other than that, I again just say thank you, and I hope you all had a great day, and we'd like to hear from you soon. Hutch?
Yeah, let us know if you need anything. We want to hear from you. If you have any suggestions, comments, issues, problems, you don't want to see us all over the place like we have been lately. Yes, you do. For sure you do. I did just start a blog. I don't know anything about blogging or getting my certification, but I'm going to walk through the process and hopefully make it a little easier for some of you to do the same thing.
I think this was a really successful first event for our new chapter. It was nice to see a lot of people come out. More than half of those who said they were going to be here are here. So that was great. And I think it's really good content. And we want to keep this going.
Cool. Right. All right. Thank you, everybody.
You.
Hope to see you soon.
Have a great evening.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.